Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Wanderlust evening where we're looking at Oman's wild side. Really looking forward to this. I think we're going to be in for a real treat this evening. So I see people are coming in already and saying hello in the chat box. And like Steve in New Zealand, welcome. Gosh, see, people are joining us from far and wide. And Robert in Cambridge, Angela in Dorset, Grove in Telford, John, Burwood Park near London, Nicholas from Windsor. I'm in Windsor, and Phoebe, you're in Windsor, aren't you? So, yes, got Windsor posse in tonight. Lek from Warsaw. Oh gosh, 200 miles from the Belarus frontier. So Brian from Ipswich, Bryn from Hospital. Oh dear, Bryn, I hope you're all right. We've got somebody else from Windsor, John. Welcome, John. And Vivian in High Wycombe, Julie in the Lake District, and Ruth from a boat on a canal. Oh, where's the canal, Ruth? Hi, Nicholas from a chilly island, Acton. I know, I think we're all dreaming of warmer climes, aren't we? And we're dreaming of places like Oman. Eva in Malaga, I hope it's a bit warmer there. And Nicholas, I know the Wanderlust offices, probably our former office, but yes. Hey, Rita in Fife, Scotland, Marianne in Toronto, and Peter in Chiswick, Paddy from Dublin. So welcome, everybody. Make yourself comfortable. I hope you've got a drink to hand because we're in for a real treat tonight. We're being asked, is this being recorded? Yes, I was going to mention that this is being recorded this evening. And so no worries if you have to miss a bit, you have to leave early. We hope you don't, but it is being recorded and we will be sending that recording out in a few days. Hello to Sally and Tony from Simmons Yacht, real regulars, and it was lovely to meet you in person the other week. And Julia in Southend, and Anne from Birmingham, Hillary from Uxbridge. Who's that? Yadira in Miami, Florida. So lots and lots of interest. Pamela saying hello from Chile, Kent, who went to Oman in 2015. And we'll read your lovely little tale there later. So, yes, if you have been to Oman, we'd love to hear that as well. Hello to Christine from Victoria, BC. I hope you were on our Canada wildlife chat the other week because that was fascinating, and I think we all wanted to move to BC on that, but I think after this evening we're all going to want to move to Oman. So hello to Alison in Harrogate and Wendy in America. Well, America, that's a very, very big place, Wendy. I think you need to be a bit more specific than that. Okay, so lots and lots of people joining us tonight. So we will kick off in a moment. Oh, somebody's saying their dad used to work out in Oman in the late 70s. And somebody else, brilliant. So yes, do give us your Oman stories too. And of course, during the evening, if you've got any questions at all for the speakers, do put them in the chat box. I'll be making a note of them for when we do the Q&A. And we'll also have members of the Wanderlust and the Audley team in the chat box as well, answering some of the questions. So welcome all for joining us. As I say, this is going to be so interesting this evening. So, as I say, we are going to kick off in a second. So let me, without further ado, introduce our speakers. So, first of all, we've got Phoebe Smith. Phoebe's an award-winning travel writer, photographer, presenter, and broadcaster. And Phoebe specializes in adventure, the outdoors, and wildlife conservation. And she's host of the multi-award-winning Wonder Woman podcast, which has just been awarded Best Travel Broadcast of 2021 in the Travel Media Awards. And Phoebe, who's a complete overachiever, so I'm not going to go through a whole bio, would be here all night. But Phoebe's also the author of just the 10 books to date, including Travel Writer's Field Guide, Extreme Sleeps, Adventures of a Wild Camper, and Wilderness Weekend. So welcome back, Phoebe. We're also being joined by, all the way from Oman, by Israel Janli, who's a former leader at Wanderlust Oman. And so that's, not Wanderlust as in the travel magazine, but Wanderlust Oman, a leading female adventure and tourism company. Isra was raised by parents who always loved to travel and discover new places. And she loves adrenaline boosting activities and sharing those experiences as a motivational speaker. Isra also believes in using tourism and adventure to empower women spiritually, mentally, and physically. Isra works as a full-time lecturer at the University of Technology and Applied Sciences and enjoys spending her spare time exploring new spots in the country. So, Isra, I think you are in Muscat tonight, are you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
It's a working day. Yeah,
a working day. So you're in your office.
Yeah.
And what time is it there?
Well, it's 10, almost, 10
p.m. Yeah.
Yes.
So
quite late.
Quite late. So thank you for joining us, and
thank you very
really
much.
looking
It's a
forward.
pleasure.
Really looking forward to this. Then we've also got Rob Wilson. And Rob heads up the Oman Ministry of Heritage and Tourism team in the UK and Ireland. And he'll be telling us a little bit more about himself and his experience of Oman in a few minutes. And then we've also got Sarah Watman. Sarah is the Oman specialist at Audley Travel. And after living in the Gulf as a child, Sarah studied Arabic and French at Edinburgh University. Sarah has travelled to Oman on several occasions. Her most recent visit saw her exploring Muscat, the Hajar Mountains, Nizwa and Wahiba Sands. So Sarah is here tonight to help answer your questions. And Audley Travel, of course, brilliant travel company who we work with a lot. And so Sarah will, amongst other things, be able to answer any kind of practical questions about going to Oman, doing a trip there. And then if you don't know me, I'm Lynn Hughes. I'm the founding editor of Wanderlust. I've only been to Oman once, but I tell you what, it was such a memorable trip. Absolutely wonderful. And my article in Thesages Tracks is on the Wanderlust website. This was back in 2014, by the way. But it was awarded Best Article on Oman that year at the World Travel Market. So which I think was a sign of how much I enjoyed the trip and was passionate about it. So really, really fantastic trip. Okay, so as I mentioned, we are going to be recording this evening. We can send it out, and do send your questions in during the evening, because after we've heard from our speakers, we will be doing a Q&A. So I think we will kick off with Rob. So, Rob, can we hand over to you to give us a little bit of an overview and set the scene? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And I would just like to say welcome. Thank you. Good evening or good morning, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining us. I think what we really want to get out today, hopefully we inspire you and you learn a little bit about Oman, and it inspires you certainly to visit the country. I've been working with the Ministry of Tourism now for the last 3-4 years. And I've been lucky enough to travel around the world. And for me, in my opinion, Oman is one of the most beautiful countries on earth. It really is. And that's not just in terms of the country and geography, but the people. They're truly welcoming people. So I've got a couple of slides that I'm just going to take you through. I'm not going to talk over them. I'm just going to, just to look in the background, just give you a bit of an idea and a little bit of an introduction. So basics. Where is Oman? Yes, it is part of the Middle East. It is part of the Gulf. But the one thing to be aware of Oman, it's got over 3,000 kilometers of coastline on the Indian Ocean, on the Arabian Sea. So it's got slightly different influences and also different climate, because obviously if you're on the coast, you've got a lovely breeze coming in from the ocean, and it really does make a difference to Oman. If you're looking at it from London, I know we've got people from all over the world. If you're looking at it from London, the direct flight is about 7 to 7.5 hours, depending on whether you're coming in or going out. And I think Isra mentioned earlier, it's about 10 minutes past 10 at the minute in the evening. So from a GMT perspective, it is 4 hours plus. And then when it hits British summertime, it goes back an hour. So it's plus 3 hours. There are predominantly 2 seasons, winter and summer. Obviously, the winter's not like it is in the UK at the minute, absolutely freezing. It's down to the 22, 23, 24, 25 degrees, lovely in Muscat. And obviously in the summer, slightly warmer, certainly in the interior as well. And I'll mention the slightly unique environments that we have down in Salalah in a minute, because that is quite unique in terms of the Middle East. I think you'd be quite surprised. I think basically, and obviously, Oman is a Gulf state. In terms of geography, it is 30% larger than the UK, but it has a population of 5.1 million. The UK has a population of 67 million. So there is a huge, huge expanse out there. And I think that's why it's so beautiful, because it is so, raw is not the right word, but, you know, it's untouched a lot of the time, and it's its natural beauty and its natural state. And it's a land of contrast. So you really do see so much. This slide just pretty much goes on about, you know, from where you can get certainly to fly into Muscat on Oman Air. They fly all over the world. They operate Dreamliners on their international routes. And when you do fly into Oman, what does actually happen is you fly into the new airport, which is opening in 2018. But you don't really want to hear about that. You want to hear about what's different about it. And I think, for me, what makes Oman special, and I've asked this question a lot, and we've got amazing product, we've got amazing destinations and experiences, it's the people. The one thing everybody comes away whenever they visit Oman, they say the people are absolutely beautiful. They're the most hospitable and friendly people you could ever imagine. So as soon as you walk out into the airport, you meet the local Omani taxi driver. It's the Omanis in taxi driver. You go to the shop, it's the Omanis. They will talk to you. They're friendly. They're inquisitive. You know, Omani coffee, they'll give you dates. They'll give you coffee. Even in the hotels, they just want to chat and engage with you. And I think there's something absolutely beautiful about that. And that actually comes from a lot of the history of the culture of Oman over the years. You've got to remember that Oman, it used to be an empire. It's been a central part of the Middle East for centuries, from the Arabic tribes that actually came down to the Portuguese, colonized the area, to the British influence as well. And even when you talk about the Omani Empire, you talk about that's an empire that actually stretched down from into the UAE, because that used to be part of Oman, and it went all the way down to the East African coast. So if you look at Zanzibar, that was part of the Omani empire as it was then. So to the point, and even when you're a lot of the time in southern Oman, you'll hear people speak Swahili, because that's the language, that's the input. And there's a lot of those influences. And I think that's why what makes the people what they actually are. There are so many influences. So even if you look at through ancient history, and you'll see the fables of Aladdin, seafaring nations, where dhows, a lot of the dhows are actually built even to this day through there's one site just south of Muscat. But a lot of the trade routes actually came through Muscat, from India, from that west coast of India, and on from Asia. So there's a huge influence that's affected. So there's a large Indian population actually in Muscat and Oman, and that's really come through to the food. So yes, you do get the Middle Eastern food, but you get a lot of the influences of food that come from India. So you've got this real melting pot of cultures, and it's something quite exciting about it. I think it's absolutely amazing that you've got this land of contrasts, you know, in what you perceive as the Middle East. You obviously have the traditional Arabic, we've got a picture here of the Grand Mosque, which is truly, truly beautiful, absolutely amazing. But Oman's influence this day around the world, it is one of the most respected countries you'll ever actually go to. And I think one of the things I do actually love is its history and its culture, as mentioned. You see here the forts, and those are the Portuguese forts, and you can actually go there and you can see how they got UNESCO World Heritage Sites from that side. But I think it's not just that, it's about the nature and the wildlife. And I think if you go in there for wildlife, you've got Arabian leopard, you've got the oryx, you've got the camels, you've got the turtles nesting, you've got the whales. You can see so much. It's an amazing place for bird watching. There are so many programs that are trying to protect a lot of these animals that are actually under threat. And the Omanis are actually quite proud of that. They really, really are. But you can not only experience that, but you can stand in awe at the scenery. And I think that's one of the things that really impacted me when I first went to Oman, was the sheer beauty. And we're lucky enough, we see the internet and we see online and we sort of recognize what is truly amazing. You can head up into the mountains. This Omani is actually up in the Tawakbar Mountains, which are just about 2.5 hours west of Oman. And you go up to 2,500 meters, and they actually have their own Grand Canyon. And Prince Charles and Prince Diana, they actually went on honeymoon there. So if you remember, but there's a place called Diana's Point, which is overlooking this Grand Canyon, just drops away. It's truly spectacular. And there are ancient villages actually built into the sides of the canyon. And some of them are still inhabited today. And they're all terraced. And it's all for roses, because they produce rose water to this day. That pomegranate trees just growing. And you can actually walk from these villages through the actual mountainside onto these canyons. Truly spectacular. To deserts, which you normally expect. You have the empty quarter in the southern third of the country, which goes into Yemen and Saudi and the UAE. A few years ago, an ancient city was rediscovered, which they're actually quite looking at which are currently excavating, or on the coastline, you have the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Al Balid Archaeological Palace. Truly amazing sites. To the coastline, I mentioned 3,000 kilometers of coastline. There can be rocky bluffs, the most beautiful white sand, turquoise lapped beaches, through to the fjords of Muscat. Muscat is an enclave that just faces, actually separated from Oman by the UAE, and it's on the Strait of Hormuz. It just faces Iran. You go there as if you could take the Norwegian fjords and you put them in a gulf. That is Muscat. Truly spectacular. You can go up to the mountains and see the Bedouin tribes. There's actually a telegraph station that the British actually laid, which came from India straight through to London. It's just the amazing history. To Salalah, which I mentioned earlier on. Salalah is actually on the coast in southern Oman. And during the European, sort of Western summer, the Kharif comes along, and that's the monsoon that comes in off the Indian Ocean. And it's a fine drizzle. It's about 18 degrees. It's a really fine drizzle, but the whole land suddenly goes green. The colours come out, the flora and the fauna. But what's beautiful about it is that certainly as you sort of come out of that period, certainly in that September, October, you have this lush subtropical feel. You actually feel like you're in East Africa, and you're driving along the road and you can stop off and buy the bananas, the pineapples and the fresh coconuts. And you're there going, am I really in the Middle East, or am I really in Oman? I think for me, it's a land of surprises. And, before I hand over, it's not just about the people, and it's not just about the scenery, about what you can do there. If you want to take it easy and you want to relax, you certainly can do. You can go to the local souks, you can go to the local animal markets and see everything. You can go to a local camel race. Just so much you can go Mutra, amazing souk actually in the old part of Muscat. Go to the Grand Mosque, but you can kite surf. You can go to Mesra Island and you can scuba dive. You can go fishing. You can go snorkeling. You can cycle. You can rock climb on the Via Ferratas, or you can just take a gentle walk or hike. There's everything that everybody wants to do from every single level you can do to. And I think hopefully today will give you a little bit of an insight before I hand back over to Lynn about Oman and its people. And I'd welcome your questions, and hopefully you're inspired as much as I am about Oman, because it's certainly my passion. So that concludes my conclusion, and I'll hand back over to Lynn.
Hi, Rob. Oh, gosh. I think we've all been getting very excited about that. And that really brought over, I think, just how immense it is, how diverse it is. I mean, just for instance, when you said about there being 3,000 kilometers of coastline, I mean, that is quite staggering when you think about it, because mention Oman, people don't think about the coast. Or they might, if they've, some people might know about, Muscat, for instance, is stretched along the coast. But other than that, I know that one of my abiding memories that really struck me was how clear the sea was there, and you could stand on cliffs and you could see turtles, you could see dolphins, you could see this incredible marine life from the cliff tops.
Oh, it's amazing. When I went in, I flew in. I think we landed in the morning. I had my young children with me. We got to the hotel. We went straight to the beach, and they would said, they were nesting. They were actually breaking out, hatching the turtles. And they were waddling their way in. You had the turtle ranger there. So I think, there's very much, the Omanis are very much aware of their ecology as well. And they're very proud of that, and they do protect it. But to see that, you just, humbling, I think. And amazing. There's so much of the coastline that is not deserted, but you can find your own way. And it's a true nature's paradise.
Yeah, it really is. I think, so much of that is undiscovered to us. And so the country as a whole really is. Although having said that, it's great to see so many people in the chat box saying that they have been. So it's lovely to see their stories. And you had Oman Air in there as well, and I flew Oman Air, and I thought they were such a good airline. Again, I didn't appreciate what a good airline they were.
It's absolutely excellent, and I think at the minute, hopefully, I mean, COVID's changed a lot of things in the world. We hope in December we'll be flying daily from London, and also they do from Paris and Milan as well. But hopefully as we move through and sort of recover, come out of COVID, we'll be going back up to double dailies, and hopefully we'll be adding Manchester's back on online as well, because they are a fantastic airline, and you get that hospitality. And even start off with the Omani coffee, being brought around on the flight. That's
exactly
amazing.
No, absolutely hit the nail on the head. Well, thank you so much, Rob, and we'll see you back for the Q&A. Thank you. And if I can invite Phoebe back on. And Phoebe, of course, went for Wanderlust and just did a most brilliant article on Oman. So I am really looking forward to this presentation. So Over to you, Phoebe.
Oh, thanks, Lynn. And thanks everyone for joining us here tonight, and for giving me the opportunity to kind of sift through my old photographs from, I was there in 2018 when I went for Wanderlust, and it's given me a real chance to kind of look back and remind myself how wonderful it was, and make me want to go back all over again. I'm sure everyone's feeling the same way. So I actually went to Salalah, which you heard Rob mention, and I was very much in search of the wild side and the wildest resident, which is the Omani leopard. As you can see a picture here, not one of mine. This was taken by a guy called Hardy, who runs one of the research projects over there. But we will come to my success with the leopards later on in the talk. First of all, I just wanted to say a little bit about me. Obviously, Lynn told you about me being a travel writer and a presenter and an author and a podcast host, but I do all those things as a way to get me to these wonderfully wild places. And I love going to a place and finding out a side to it that not everyone thinks about. So, of course, Salalah was a place that really, really called to me. It's south of the country, and it's just not what you would expect when you hear Oman, or certainly wasn't what I thought and what I was going to expect when I got there. So I'm always seeking wild places. I'm always going on these hunts for things that you might not necessarily see. So the picture I've used now, you might be wondering why I've shown it you. I'm in the snow, and obviously we're talking about Oman, which is wonderful and sunny, even in the winter. But this is because I was on the search for the middle of nowhere in the UK, the official middle of nowhere. Even though I was told there was nothing there to see if I found it, I still wanted to go anyway. So that kind of gives you a little bit into my mindset of why I decided Oman was the place I wanted to go, and I definitely wanted to go and see the Omani leopards. So, of course, I arrived in Muscat, as you do when you head over there, and it's absolutely beautiful. It is exactly what you expect. You know, you have the mosques, like the picture I'm showing you here. You have the port, you have the souks, you have the waterfront, you have lots of seafood, because obviously it is by the coast, as we've just been talking about. But to go wild, you've got to go much further south. So introducing Salalah to you all. So Salalah is about 1,000 kilometers from Muscat. It takes about an hour and a half flying. And it's definitely, I'd say, the wildest and least explored of all of the corners of the country. It's squeezed, as we know Oman is squeezed between Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Yemen, and Salalah is very much on the border with the latter of those, with Yemen. And when I went, they just finished a new airport to try and entice visitors who came into the country to explore further south. And as such, tourism is still very new to the area. The coastline still feels beautifully wild. There's no sort of massively tall buildings ruining the skyline. There's just mountains, or jebels as they're known, which kind of reach out to the empty quarter. But it's the wildlife and the bird life that make it really special. And because of these new coastal roads that had been finished when I got there, it's really easy to get around. So you can hire a car or hire a guide. And a lot of the things you'll want to see that I'll just touch upon in this talk are very easy to get to and very close to each other. So what wildlife will you see? Well, we all think camels. I certainly thought camels. And this was one of the first signs I saw once I got behind the wheel and headed into Salalah. But it's not actually just camels. There are, of course, birds, and lots of them. So I met up with my guide, Justin, who was a man who'd moved 20 years ago to Oman. He'd gone for a visit, fell in love with both a woman and the place, and never left. And on the first day, he took me to a place called Tui Atar, which is also known as the Well of the Birds. Now, from this picture, it doesn't look like much, but this is a 210 meter deep sinkhole. And inside, you can climb down to about halfway on a path that most people can manage. It's not that tricky, but you get a little bit of depth in there. Dawn is definitely the time to go. And it started for me with seeing one of the Benelli eagles, which you can see pictured here, kind of just circling above the sinkhole, like on the thermals. And then everything was quiet. And then as things started to warm up, you got the tuneful sound of the South Arabian wheat ear. There was the melody of the hoopy birds. There was the altar of the systems grackle, and all this, the sort of sound of this building orchestra of birdsong just reverberates off this rocky sort of chasm, and it's just this incredible, it's not necessarily what you see, it's what you hear. So it's one of those things that's very difficult to visually give it justice, but it's all about the sound. And that was my introduction to this wilder side of Oman, and it was just the beginning. From there, Justin knew that I love trees and I love nature, so he took me to a place called Wadi Hinna. So Wadi Hinna is known for the baobab trees. It's got sort of little water holes pockmarking it, and then trees stretching up all over. And I love the baobab because they're someone once described them as trees that have been planted upside down because they look like they're the wrong way up. And this area at Wadi Hinna has a walking trail to take you through some amazing specimens of these trees in all different shapes and sizes. And I think I said in the article that I didn't know if there was a collective name for a group of baobab trees, but I would call them a bloom, because there was one point where 3 were all growing out of this same system, almost making a mini forest from what appeared to be one tree. And so when I was admiring the trees, obviously there was still wildlife there. There was Bruce's green pigeons, as they're called. So even the pigeons have this wonderful splash of colour that make you notice them. And even just sitting down to eat my food, I noticed there was semaphore rock geckos just kind of peering up at me. And after this kind of look around Wadi Hinna, we then went for lunch in a local village, just in a little cafe, and served up dal and vegetable and paratha. And it was just the most exquisite food, very, very low in price, just at the side of the road. But my day was already going really, really well. Fast forward to the afternoon, and you heard Rob talk about the greenness, the lushness that comes down into Salalah because they get the rain coming in. And this was Wadi Darbat. So this is an area where a lot of locals like to go, and they tend to sort of stay quite near the car park and picnic from there. But I was on the hunt for the porcupine, which is native to the area. Straight away, lots of bird life, lots of the species that I'd mentioned before. This particular one is an African paradise flycatcher that we could see in the trees, suddenly shown by this splash of colour within the leaves. But we were looking for this porcupine, so we were going through the gorgeous overhanging shelters and cave systems, and Justin was telling me about the people that would have lived there and actually sheltered in these and used them as their home. And look at that view. Talk about a room with a view. I was very jealous of where they would have lived. And the whole area is full of myrrh trees. There's thorny apple, fig trees, which are harvested for fruit. There was still no sign of this porcupine, but then we heard a noise. And I thought, is this going to be it? Are we going to see the porcupine that we're on the hunt for? We found some quills, but it was a camel, because that's what's there. There's a lot of camels roaming free. So that sign suddenly started to make a lot more sense than I saw at the beginning. No porcupine, but a beautiful place to spend the afternoon. Now, the following day, Justin took me to a place which is an archaeological site that they say was used by the Queen of Sheba herself. It was excavated in 1953. It's called Khor Ori, and it dated back, they believe, to the 2nd century. And it's a place where the Queen of Sheba and others would have come to be able to get the native frankincense. But the real impressive part to me was that was all lovely and beautiful, but for me it was the location, because it actually sits on an estuary, which means it's great to watch the birds again. So you have flamingos that you can see in the foreground. There were spoonbills, there were glossy ibis, egrets, black-winged stilts, and even more of the eagles soaring overhead. But I wanted more. I was greedy for more. And luckily, Oman definitely delivers. So the rest of the day was spent going to some of the local parks. So they have some very green and beautiful local parks there. This one, you can see a sunbird on the flowers. I went to another one. These are bulbas. So one was called Razat and the other was called Hamran, the 2 different parks that I went to. And also more camels, of course. So the parks, at least then, were used for grazing. There has been a bit of an issue there. So conservationists are trying to encourage tourists to visit the park to send the message that people want to see the park for the nature and the wildlife, and actually grazing maybe doesn't have a place there anymore. So tourism, once again, is kind of driving conservation, which is why I think travel is such a powerful tool. Now on to the main reason for travel, because I know I'm going to run out of time, and just so much more to hear. So these two guys, so I'd heard about something called the Omani Leopard Conservation Project before I went. I'd read a piece written by a guy called Hadi Al-Hakim, and this is his brother. The guy without the hat on is Khaled, who's his brother. And they both grew up in the mountains there in Salalah and fell in love with the idea of the Omani leopard and having their own subspecies. This is his boss that Khaled works with, and they are working to do research to not only work out how many numbers of leopards are left in the wild there, but also to protect them and educate locals to want to help look after them. Because the problem that's happened is, of course, as we've seen across the world, this is not just something that's happened in Oman, but leopards hunt gazelles and ibex, which keep those populations very healthy and in, you know, good numbers. But as the territory which the leopards would normally roam upon became more used for farming, that meant that big cats suddenly become persecuted, because of course no one wants the cattle to be eaten by the wild leopards. And so basically the landscape, because of all the cattle, got a little bit denuded. The leopards had a smaller space to walk around and to do their hunting. But what this project did, and what the Omani government have been really good at doing, is actually turning it on its head and actually showing them that the Omani leopard is a species to be really, really proud of. And they are actually giving farmers money when some of the livestock is taken by a leopard, to make them realize that actually people will come to see the leopards, they'll come to see the wildlife. So it's a really interesting conservation story there. So this is just to give you an indication of the area. So this is taken from a guy called Andrew Spalton's book. If you're really interested in the Omani leopard, he's kind of the lead guy of it, and he's written all about the Omani leopard. And I was fortunate enough to have a chat with him. And as you can see, because it's on the border with Yemen, and obviously since 2014, there's been no communication between the Omani leopard project and the Yemen one. It means that the leopards are free to wander over the borders, but they're not protected in Yemen in the same way that they are in Oman. So they're working so hard to get these animals protected. And Hadi, when I spoke to him, said that he's in 15 years seen them 4 times. So was I going to see them? He said, you'd have to be very lucky. And I said, was I feeling lucky? So I headed to the place that you have to go to if you want to see them, which is Jebel Shaman. And this is the home of the leopards. It's kind of up from the coast. So you get this beautiful sweeping view of the coast, and it edges onto the empty quarter. And you see out all over Salalah. It's kind of a moonlight, rocky landscape. And on the sort of precipices, you see trees like this. So this is a dragon blood tree, sort of just poking and growing in this impossibly almost barren looking place. And this is the escarpment itself. So you can just about make out Justin walking for me on the path to scale it for you. And there was a sign up that was written in Arabic, and Justin can speak Arabic, and he was saying it looked like it was the leopard trail. And sure enough, when I spoke to both Khaled and Hadi, this was the leopard trail that people would sort of say this is the area where they saw the leopards. So we waited, we watched, we walked, we moved on, we walked, we waited a bit more. Did we see any leopard? Sadly, no. As I said to you before, I love the chase of trying to find these things, even if the chances are very, very low. But this was proof on one of the camera traps from Khaled and Hadi that the leopards were there on that trail in that area. And the really great thing is that up on Jebel Saman is this wonderful area where they're encouraging, and certainly they were in 2018, obviously pandemic can may have put those plans slightly on hold. They were trying to encourage locals to open a cafe and a visitor centre so that people can learn about the leopards, because trying to make locals realise in Salalah that people will come, visitors will come, even if there's not a huge chance to see the leopard, but just to know it's there and know you're walking in the landscape of the wild leopard. Certainly it's what took me to one of the most incredible places I've ever been to. I absolutely loved it. Before I sign off though, which will be a lovely segue into the next speaker, I just wanted to say that wild side all happened down south in Salalah. But you heard Rob mention this just before I left. Rob said he wanted to show me a little taste of the wild closer to the capital. So 2 hours from the city of Muscat, he took me to the Grand Canyon that you heard Rob talk about before, in Wadi Nakir, and it's beneath a place called Jebel Shams. And he mentioned those little towns and these little villages that are all kind of precariously on the edge of the canyon. This is one of them. You can see Justin looking up. Now, you may notice that Justin's wearing a harness. So this was literally just before my flight home. And he gave me a harness, said, we're doing this walk along the rim of the Grand Canyon. And then, of course, took me to the Via Ferrata, which is the Iron Way, as it's known, drilled into the side of the rock for a spectacular finale on my Oman adventure, to climb my way, walk into the canyon and climb my way back out. The great thing about Via Ferrata, of course, is you clip yourself in, you cannot fall off it. So it's a safe way to experience the kind of views and experience that normally only the big wall climbers can, and I cannot recommend it enough. So I hope you enjoyed my talk about the wonderful wildlife, the scenery, and definitely the people as well made it for me as well. But it just gives you there's a little bit of wild all over Oman, and you really have to go to experience and explore it for yourself. So hopefully we'll all be doing that, and I for one will definitely be going back there and joining you all. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Phoebe. That was brilliant. And as somebody, I think it's called Justin in the chat box, said, you built up the suspense really well. And you did. And I think
it was that was for me, those whole few days I was there, it was that suspense, like will we, and I was so determined we will. And then even when we didn't, there was just so much else to see there. It's it was a beautiful place. Love Salalah.
No, absolutely. And do you think that there is potential for wildlife tourism there, even if it is quite difficult, as you say, to actually see things? But can you see it developing there?
Definitely. So talking to Khaled, so Hadi's brother, so Hadi at the moment is doing his PhD over in the UK, but Khaled is still there. And he says that they already had trialed taking tourists out to camp with them and actually set up camera traps and check the camera traps. And as night falls, they got to see other wildlife that comes out at night that you wouldn't necessarily see. So he sort of said, oh, do you think people would like that even if they don't see the leopards? And I was like, absolutely, because they're almost doing that citizen science. They're contributing towards documenting sightings of these leopards. And I said, my God, if I'd have known you could do that, I'd have been doing that now. So I said, definitely, there's something in that. So I hope they do it, and I hope I get to go back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sounds like you need to. And everybody, I think we've had a great reaction. If you want to see Phoebe's article, be reminded of that. It is on the Wanderlust website. There's a link in the chat box, but we'll also include it in the follow-up email that we'll be sending out in a couple of days with the link to tonight. So thank you so much, Phoebe.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here in a few minutes. Right. Okay. So wasn't that terrific? And now we are going, though, to Oman, because we're going to be hearing from Isra. So, Isra, welcome. And,
thank you very much, Lynn. Thank you for all the incredible presentations so far. I feel like I want to visit this country that everyone is talking about. Will I live in it?
And I think, meanwhile, everybody's really jealous that you are actually living there. So come on, you make us more jealous. Now, we're going to load your presentation up, and I know you've got some little video clips to show as well. So when it comes,
will be part of the presentation.
Yeah. Yes. So when it comes to the points where you want the video, if you say, "Can we now have a video?" then we'll make sure the video plays. So just let us know each time you have a video to play.
Sure.
Okay, so let's bring your presentation up.
Okay, so after these two very beautiful journeys with both speakers, I want to take you through a journey where you can see most of Oman through what I've been doing lately and what I was doing almost for my entire life. Well, the first thing that you would think of coming to Oman is maybe desert, maybe mountains, but if you've ever heard that Oman is a country of everything, then it's true. Oman is the country of variety, of contrast, a place for everyone. And this is what you will see in my talk. So where do I come from? I come from Al-Khabura. Al-Khabura is a small town, which is 1.5 hour drive from Muscat, which is the capital city. This gives me a chance to see all I can see while I am going back or coming to Muscat, which is through the coastline. And it also gives me a chance to discover more of the areas here in Oman, because basically I stay away from the family, so I have a lot of free time that I can spend doing things that I like. So instead of looking at Dhofar, which is a huge part of Oman that you should really look into separately, I'll be looking at Muscat, part of Al-Wusta, Al-Dakhiliya, and some of the Batina and Sharqiya coasts. So, okay, now coming to Muscat, maybe the first thing anyone would think of is maybe buildings, cultural places, history, but there are also places for people who would love to have adventures. For example, for a person like me, this is something that I can do in a normal day, very morning or maybe in the evening. This is the first thing that I would love to do if I think that I have to have one of the most interesting plans of the day, which is Sidab hike. And Sidab is 15 to 20 minutes, 15-minute drive from the city center of Muscat, where you can drive through Matrah, Riyam, and then going to Muscat and then to Sidab. Can I have the video played here, please? So what you saw, this is a normal morning that you can see after you trek throughout all the mountains here, and then you see an incredibly beautiful beach that people go to for a swim, for a quiet morning, or even snorkeling at some times of the year. Moving on to another hike trail is Sa'al. And Sa'al is one of the challenging but short trails. However, when you say Sa'al, people would definitely think about the steps. But there is also another trail, which not so many people who come to Oman would know about it, which is the village and the mountain trail where I go normally. And this is what you see. So if you see through Sidab, the beach side, you will be able to see the industrial part and the buildings and everything from the top of Muscat. Moving to Riyam, which is also one very common hiking trail. And what makes Riyam trail is so special to so many people that it's short. It's in the middle of the city, in fact, and it's just in the neighborhood. If you can see here, there are houses and places where you can see here the forts, the Jalali and Mirani. So going through the trail will make you see Matrah Souq, which is one of the most popular places to visit in Muscat. And if you see the other side, then again, you will see one of the best sceneries that you can enjoy your morning or afternoon times, whether during the summer, winter, or any time throughout the year. The fourth one, which is would be considered maybe the best destinations for locals and visitors, which is called Bend Al Khiran. And the best time to visit Bend Al Khiran would be around this time of the year, where you can go for a camp during the night. And this is what I did last weekend, and then enjoy a swim in the morning, because you can see it's a private area and it's very safe. And you would see that so many people are there, but they are in different spots of the mountains and the beach. So you can enjoy your time there after a long, quite long trek. And this is Qantab. Qantab is also after Sidab. And if you go through the trekking trail of Qantab, you would also be able to see Qantab here. And going through this neighborhood, it's the way which takes you to Sidab, which was the first scenery that I showed with you. Now, this is about if you're thinking about hiking and trekking throughout the capital city, which you can even find more options. Now, what about this one? This photo I took last week or the week before, and this is for you can get here going to a place called Al Amirat, which is 10 minutes from the city center of Muscat. And this is the top of Muscat. So basically, you can either go by a car, like what you see here, or you can go trekking to this point where you can see very beautiful Muscat from the top. In fact, you can see the Grand Mosque, the Amin Mosque. You can see the beaches from there. And the best time to go throughout the day is during the night, because this is what you will be seeing. But it's also very beautiful to see it in the morning as well. And what makes it also one of the destinations to go to, that you do not really need to plan for it, because you can be heading to Sur, to Fens, or any place around Muscat, but you will pass by Al Amirat, of course. Now, what if you don't want to hike and you want still to enjoy places in Muscat? Then snorkeling, diving, and swimming with the turtles, with the whales, or watching the dolphins will be the option for you. And this is something you can do on a daily basis. We can take any of the local boats here and enjoy a day trip to a Dimaniyat island, or even to Bend Al Khiran, where I took this picture specifically during the sunset for a group of dolphins. It was around 20. I always go, but it was the first time to see as many dolphins in the same place, and that was not even planned. Some other options is to go for some activities that you may enjoy, like kneeboarding, flyboarding, or kayaking, or parasailing, and some others, which are all around the city center, of course. You can also enjoy horse riding by the sunset or the sunrise, again, here in Muscat, throughout the coastline, if you wish. And all the horses will be hired from different spots around Muscat. Now, moving to outside Muscat, and when thinking about what to include here, I thought of the Grand Canyon, because it's something that you wouldn't love to miss if you come to Oman. And the Grand Canyon has different places to hike in, like Wadi al-Nakhar, the balcony walk, Bani Khamis, and so many other options. But one trip that you would love to try is going to the summit, which is the highest summit in the whole Gulf. And and here, I was lucky to go and be able to see all the skies and to see the snow as well. When I was doing it, this was my tent during that day. And it was snowing. And yes, this was in Oman. This is why I always say it's the country of all seasons. You can see that it's very hot at some places, but it's at the same time, it may be snowing at some other times, like Jabal Shams or Jabal Akhdar. And this is the exact moment when I get to the summit, because it wasn't an easy journey, but the scenery you see there, the feeling you get once you get there, because it's up to 3,000 meters above the ground. So whatever you see is just something that you cannot really describe. This is why it's unforgettable moment for anyone who can make it either within 2 days or 1 day hike. Then this is the Grand Canyon. Can I have the video on, please, here?
This mountain, climbing up twice, hoping that I make it this time, but I'm so done with hoping. Cause hoping is the feeling, is the falling down this mountain, falling down again. Boom, boom, heartbeat still beating, in the end I'm choking. But that's just what they wanted, so I get up off the ground and I shake it up. Da-da-da-da, come look at me now, look at me now.
So I took this video through the balcony walk, where you have the chance to go through so many caves which are in the mountains themselves, and you can enjoy such sceneries there. We were cooking there, we were enjoying coffee, and then we did some abseiling. In fact, this is exactly in the same spot where I was standing beforehand. And something else that you can do and enjoy is the Via Ferrata. You wouldn't miss Via Ferrata when you come to Jabal Shams or Jabal Akhdar. And now Wadi Nakhar, as Phoebe has just mentioned, has also Via Ferrata. So this is one thing that you can also enjoy. And here is Wadi Nakhar. And this is how I was feeling when I was going and climbing through the mountains to go to this exact point where you forget all the long hike you go and enjoy the swim and enjoy the pure blue water after the long hike. And this is how it looks from another spot in Wadi Nakhar. And here, this is Tanoof. And Tanoof is 2-hour drive from Muscat. And this arc was discovered very recently. And you can enjoy the abseiling and the walk throughout the arc, and or enjoy the huge swing that you can ride while hiking in this place. This is Al Jabal Al Akhdar, which is also part of Al Hajar mountain. And Jabal Akhdar is different from Jabal Shams, that you can see these landscapes which are covered with green most of the time of the year. And if you go to Jabal Akhdar, you can either enjoy the local places and hostels and the local food, or you can also, as any other places, enjoy camping. And in fact, this night was last month, which was the start of the camping season here in Oman, where I went with a friend of mine to camp for 2 days and enjoy Jabal Akhdar. Now, leaving the mountains aside and talking about something that is in all over Oman, which are the wadis. And can I have the video played in here, please? Now, this is one of the most favorite wadis to me. It's called Wadi Al-Abreen, and it's less than 1 hour drive from Muscat in your way to Sur. And Wadi Al-Abreen is very long wadi, which is full of water most of the time of the year. This was 1 year from now, and this was my last birthday, where I celebrated my birthday in Wadi Al-Abreen and enjoyed the swim there. And if you go there, you will see that everyone is enjoying the waterland, in fact. Another wadi that you may also love to visit is Wadi Hawar. Wadi Hawar is very close to Wahiba Sand. So basically, if you're thinking of going to Wadi Hawar or to the desert, which is Wahiba land, you would be able to enjoy the water, the natural slides, the abseiling, and the hiking through the mountains, and then enjoy the other part of Oman, which is the desert. Now, Wahiba land is one of the destinations that you wouldn't miss during this time of the year, during November and December, where the weather gets better and you can enjoy the camel ride, the sliding, and also having a motorcycle, or maybe you go enjoy the Bedouin lifestyle, or you can just build your tent and enjoy the weather outside. Now, this is how it looks if you go to Salalah. Phoebe talked about how Salalah looks like and how it's covered with green. But one way you can go to Salalah if you do not really want to go by a flight is to go driving, because you don't want to miss such beaches. This beach on the left, the far left, is Dabab, which is on the way to Sur. Then you go throughout the coastal line, and then you see fence here, and the one in the middle is Bema, and all of them go one after another, and you see so many beaches, incredible beaches that you can enjoy camping there. You can enjoy a picnic or enjoy swimming if you wish at some time of the years. To conclude with, I would just mention, if you come to Oman, one of the things that I would recommend is to get in touch with the locals to more about it. And you will be surprised how welcoming Omanis are. And I'm talking about how, as Rob and Phoebe said, we love to have people coming into our places, trying our food, enjoying their time. This is one thing that I tried. Shooting was never in my mind, but that was offered to me by one of the locals. And here is Uncle Saeed, who is one of the men that you will see if you go to Arstock. And he would definitely ask you to come over, enjoy the local honey, the local food, and the local lotus that you would not love to miss as well. You can also enjoy some traditions and maybe photo shoots. This was on the way to Salalah in Al-Wusta, and this was on the way to Masira, which is throughout the coastal line going to Salalah as well. And both you can try, of course, if you get in touch with the locals. One last thing that I would say is to answer whether or not it's safe to do all this in Oman. In fact, this is the best time for me as a traveler and as a local to say it's one of the phases where Omanis get into a lot of adventures and touristic activities. Because of the pandemic, we couldn't really fly out of the country. So many developments and improvements are taking place in the country. So you would definitely see so many people taking care of the places and safety measurements. Another thing, it's always safe to go because you will not be the only one in that spot. If you see here down on the right, I've started making my boy part of it. And the first hike for him was Sidab because I love it. So he tried it. We went to the beach and it was very safe. And I got help from so many people there. And this spot here, which was in the middle of the palms of a local farm from one of the families who asked us to get into their farm and enjoy the hike from the farm itself. So people are welcoming. People do love to see people coming and visit. And this reminds me of a line that I read on one of the articles for a tourist who said, I came to Oman for tourism and I ended up having home. So if you're in Oman, you're at home. Thank you very much.
Hey, Israel, what a great way to finish that. And I think that really struck a chord with all of us. And so thank you so much for that. And some great photos as well. Loads of advice. In fact, I'm going to invite the others back on for a minute. I've just noticed the time. For anybody wondering, we will run on for another sort of 10 or 15 minutes so we can get some questions in. And if you do need to leave, don't worry, because we will be doing that follow-up email. But Israel, one thing that people have commented on in the chat box is that they don't see any other tourists in the photos. Now, obviously, the world hasn't really been traveling for the last 20 months. But
well, this was taken before the pandemic, some of the photos. But what I was trying usually is to take either photos of the place itself or photos for me, part of the place. But when you go to any of these places, in fact, for example, when I was going to Audley first time, I saw a British family and I enjoyed the swimming with them, because being Omani, I was like, hi, are you here for the first time? Maybe I can take you around. So yeah, you will always see people all around.
So you'll see people, but hopefully not too many people.
Not too many. You always find a way to enjoy it. Don't worry.
Yeah. Because I think that's one thing that struck us. You've got those amazing landscapes, and we want to meet people. But we don't want too many people. We want to meet local people anyway.
Yes.
But no, that was absolutely brilliant. So let's go through some questions. So actually, Rob, first of all, what's the situation about visas, and what advice would you give there?
Okay, so if you're staying in Oman for less than 14 days, it's visa free. So there's no forms, and it's visas free on arrival. Okay, so there's no visa free. Sorry about that. So you can actually process that on arrival, or you can actually do it online prior to arriving. If you're staying for longer, you have to apply for a visa online. Okay, the rules for entering the country at the minute are that you do need to do a PCR test 2 days before your arrival, and you need to be double vaccinated by a WHO approved vaccination. So that's the situation to enter the country at the minute.
Okay, great. And what about going to Muscat? Do you need anything different visa-wise there?
So that will be exactly the same. So Muscat is classed as it's enclave, is part of Oman. So that would be exactly the same. You can actually drive through from Dubai if you so wish. Okay. And that drive from Dubai, I mean, if you're in that area, and it's a great day trip anyway, because you can drive with about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Literally, when you cross that border, I know it's an old phrase, you feel like you're in a different country. You are. It's completely amazing. And you just, the hustle and bustle from that UAE, and you come to Oman, you just sink back and actually relax. But you can also fly. Also, there's regular flights. Oman Air have excellent services within Oman and actually around the region. So they fly to Muscat. They fly down to Salalah. Also, they've got shuttle services.
Yeah. Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. Israel, somebody's asked about what's the current restrictions about things like wearing masks, for instance. Are people wearing masks there?
Yes, we're still wearing masks. Once we step out of the house, we need to keep our masks in public places and when going into markets. And to go into the malls and cultural places like the opera and the museums, you still need to have double doses. So you have to show the certificate for some official places and buildings.
Yeah. Okay, great. So do take your masks. Do take your
Just to add there, Lynn, also the NHS app is accepted.
Yeah. Okay. Terrific. Yes. That's really good. I see there's recommendations coming into the chat box as well. So yes, please do include those. So Sarah, for you, when somebody approaches Audley, like I want to go to Oman, what would your advice be about how long they should go for instance, and what are the absolutely must-dos for a first visit?
I would usually say a sort of absolute minimum of 10 days. And I always say that will do the country justice, because it's really what I describe as a slow burner of a destination. It's not that there's an amazing archaeological site to see, like you've got the pyramids in Egypt, for example. So to get the best out of it, you really do need to move around and see the different landscapes. So the coast, the mountains, the desert. And then if you want a bit more time at the end of a trip, then obviously add on a bit of time just to relax at the beach, either in Muscat or in Salalah. And if you want to do a more comprehensive trip, so visiting some of the places that Rob and Phoebe mentioned, Musandam and Salalah, I'd say a minimum of 15 days to do all of the core stuff and then the two extremities.
Yeah. I'm sure Israel says they need much longer, but we've got to be a bit realistic here sometimes, and how much holiday we get as well. But for Israel as well, somebody's commented, Justin, what's fun about Israel's photos was how he began to learn how much Israel likes jumping in the air.
Yeah,
you were very
I have also some jumps in Salalah, because Salalah is also a very beautiful place for hiking, trekking, and camping. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And now I don't know who wants to take this. Now somebody, Sarah, sort of said about the presentations. You know, it all looked very wild. Now, obviously, we did bill this as Wild Oman tonight in particular. But what would be some suggestions for things for somebody who isn't intrepid, not going to go up mountains, for instance? Who'd like to give one or two ideas? Because, of course, there's such an amazing cultural side as well to the country. Israel, I don't know if you want to go first on that.
Yes. Well, as I said, Oman is a place for everyone. So if you're thinking of quite a kind of a visit, then in Muscat, you would definitely like spend 2 or 3 days to go to places like Al-Alam Palace, to go to Matrah Souq, which is a must-visit destination for tourists, the Wave, and you can drive half an hour or 45 minutes away from Muscat to go to Fins and then to Sur, where you will also enjoy going to some historical places and to some crafts buildings. Also, if you go to Nizwa, to Ad-Dakhliya, where the Grand Canyon, you do not necessarily go for a hike. You can go to Nizwa Fort. You can enjoy Nizwa Market. You can also enjoy going to Jabal Akhdar for a relaxing, maybe 1 or 2 days, enjoying the Alila, which is a luxurious, or the Anantara luxurious places, or enjoy local hostels as well, where you will enjoy the food and the type of life that they would offer for you, part of the hostel experience. Also, you can go to Batina, which is also 1 or 1.5 drive from Muscat, where also you would love to go to forts in Rastaq, or natural water places like in Rastaq, or even going to Sahar, where you will see a lot of wadis, enjoy a boat ride. So there would be some plans for those people who look for this kind of tourism.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd just like to add that obviously within mine, I'm trying to go as wild as possible, but within all the sites that I went to, they are really easy distance from the car. Like the Well of the Birds looks like it's in the middle of nowhere, but actually it's about a 10-minute walk from your vehicle and you're in the Well of the Birds. And you know, the same with some of the valleys. You know, you drive up and you can get out and walk, or you can just drive through and have a look, or you could just go sit in the park or sit by the lake. So I think it's great. That's what I loved about it. It's as wild as you want it to be, you know, depending on what your abilities are.
And
I
was just going to quickly add, actually. Sorry, we're all jumping in to talk. We're so excited, but I think one of the things, and it's true, people that want that, you know, that 2-week tour, they can have that and you can move around. But some people just want to, you know, be by the beach. But quite often we find, certainly for first timers, because it can be quite daunting because Oman's so big, quite often they might just stay in Oman for about 5 days and they head up to the mountains. Because, you know, certainly from Muscat, you can stay in one of the beach resorts. We've got the Shangri-La, the Chedi Jumeirah. It's just opening a new on Muscat Bay. In January, you've got the Al Bastan Palace, which is castle. You've got some stunning properties. The Kempinski Hotel. you know, I mean, they're just 5-star, but then within 2.5 hours drive, you're actually up at those 2,000 meters, like Idris said, at the Alantara, you know, which is on one of the world's best hotels. The BBC documentary, the Alelia and the Dusit 2 Nassim Resort has just opened. Yeah. And then, you know, via Nizwa and the desert, you can be desert camping again within 2 hours. So for a first timer, it's quite a nice short break, because then what we find is once people, and I've seen some of the comments coming in, everyone falls in love with Oman, and you'll end up going back at some points. And I think that's the thing, so that you can almost try it out if you're a little bit nervous about that adventure, and you can have a bit of sun just to sit by the beach, plenty of sun, stunning beaches. So okay. I think that's why there is something for everybody.
And one other thing that I forgot to mention about, but it's worth mentioning, is the opera. The opera is a place where maybe you would enjoy to one of the shows. It's one of the most interesting places you can enjoy in Muscat nowadays. So yeah.
Again, another great tip. Oh gosh, so much. Phoebe, now Isra did say that obviously it's a very safe destination, but you there as a woman, you know, traveling alone and, you know, obviously clearly very Western looking. How did you find it? Would you say that for a woman going there, it's suitable?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I didn't really even think about it. It was everyone was so kind. Everyone wanted to speak to me. Like Isra was saying about, you know, when you're out hiking, there's always someone who wants to come up, and I think the Omani people are just so pleased to see that you're there and you're enjoying their country and you're enjoying the outdoors, and people want to recommend stuff to you. And like I said, some of the cafes or restaurants I was choosing to go in the evening were just local ones, and I was the only tourist there. Being Salalah was still very new to people coming, and yeah, never once did I feel even slightly uneasy. I was just made to feel welcome at every part of it. So yeah, no complaints from here.
Yeah. Very quickly, because I'm amazed that we haven't been asked it, but Phoebe, you mentioned restaurants, and of course you're vegetarian. How did you find it? For anybody who's got special diets, vegetarian or whatever, how did you get on?
Again, I was fine. I think, especially because I love to try the local food, and I'm very big fan of spices, and quite a lot of the dishes are vegetarian naturally. It's not like a big thing. So I you have to ask questions. But yeah, I certainly ate well the whole time I was there, because I needed to. I was off doing lots of hiking and beer ferratas and stuff. I needed food.
Quite. And Sarah, you're going to add to that?
I was just going to say, Rob referred earlier to the strong influence from India. So you often get the best curry outside of England, actually, really? In Oman. And obviously curries are often vegetarian. So that's a good option. Not totally typical of Oman, but a good option if you're a vegetarian.
I must say, Lynn, one of the best meals I had, actually, it was a fish meal. We were down in Salalah, and we went to local fish markets, and we just went to where the locals went. And we sat out on the street, served up the fish in the tin foil, almost the freshest fish I've ever tasted in my life. It was absolutely amazing, just eating with your hands, just with the locals. I thought it was cheap as chips, as my description is, but that's part of traveling for me, and
absolutely,
the food is wonderful.
Part. Yeah.
And I think because of the idea of having more people coming into the country, you can find a variety of vegetarian food in so many places. Because I think even the idea that we have so many people living here from outside Oman, we started having so many different options for food, for vegetarians specifically.
Yeah. Elizabeth, what would you say then would be, if somebody said, what is the typical dish? What is the dish they've got to have when they're there? Because if you come over to the UK, for instance, and you say, "Oh, Lynn, what are we going to do?" I would take you probably to a pub, maybe fish and chips is very British or something like that. So we come to Oman. We come to what do you think we should have?
Well, it depends where you're going. To Oman. If you're going to the first thing you may think of is haris and arsiya, which are like brewery. It's It's like smashed potato, but it's rice specifically.
Okay.
And it's eaten with either meat or chicken. But maybe the destination to try the best RCA is to go to a Sharqiyya, like Ja'lan, Bani Bali, or Sur, because they're known for it. But if you're in Muscat, maybe you would love to try my favorite meal, which is bablo, and it's a soup with fish. So I think haris, arsiya, and fish soups would be something that you would find.
Okay. Oh, some great recommendations there. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Sarah, oh gosh, I'm so conscious that we're over time, but let's carry on for another 5 minutes. Sarah, so for somebody going for the first time and exploring the country, what do you suggest about getting around? You know, are people using a driver and guide? Can they self-drive, or how are they doing it?
The main way to go around is in a vehicle. Somebody's just asked this in the chat box as well. There isn't a great deal of public transport, so really you would be driving and driving a four-wheel drive in order to get up into the mountains and into the desert. You can choose to take an Omani driver, or you can do a self-drive. So if you choose the first option, that's great because you can sit back, relax, let somebody else do the driving, do the navigation, admire the scenery. And if you want the second option, it has the advantage of being a bit more adventurous, a little bit more flexible. You can sort of explore and find out the places for yourself, but it's a little less relaxing because you've got to do the navigation as you go around.
Yeah.
Somebody else just asked about cycle touring in Oman as well. I think actually a couple of people have asked that. It's not something I've done myself, but I have seen it on travel blogs. So people who've travelled from Salalah all the way up to Muscat.
Nice.
And so it's definitely possible. The roads are in good condition, but that's an awful long distance and there's not too many sort of settlements on the way. So you'd have to make sure you were well stocked up with food and water. Cycling, I think, I get the impression, is becoming more popular in Oman. And every February there's the Tour of Oman, which I think spends about 5 to 6 days in Oman and going up some of the big mountain climbs around the Jebel Akhtar and the Hajar Mountains in general.
The road on the the road on the mountains, because Sarah's completely correct there, which you use for Tour Oman, is they're exceptional roads, absolutely spotless roads. So going down is fine. You wouldn't catch me going up, put it that way.
Yeah,
it's hard enough driving up them.
Yeah.
That's a good point. They are spectacular. That drive, the ascent to the mountains, whether you're in Jebel Shams or Jebel Akhbar, they are. Oh God, the sights are just truly amazing. They do take your breath away.
Oh, and Phoebe, somebody's asked again about the leopard conservationist and the book and so on. I think it's best if we get that information off you, and we'll include it in the follow-up email.
No worries.
Yeah, absolutely. So many things we could talk about. Somebody asked, have we covered diving? No, we haven't. Sorry, we didn't have time to cover diving. We might have to come back and do that another time. Frankincense forests, yes, we didn't mention those particularly, but they're down south, aren't they, near Salalah? Yeah, and we've definitely got articles on the Wanderlust website that talk about them. Isra, has your botanical greenhouse structure finished, and is it open for visiting? Do you know about that? Botanical greenhouse?
The one, I don't think it's yet open.
Gardens, no.
Yeah, not yet open, but it's in the process.
It is currently being worked on. COVID has delayed everything
exactly.
world over.
Of course.
It was due to be open, so it has been delayed, but we're hoping soon. Certainly
yes, this is exactly what they hear. Yeah.
Okay. And what about seeing the turtles? Has anybody got any advice on that? Isra?
I think my last visit, I was luckier than Phoebe because I saw the hatching moment. Because all the times I've been to the place, I always see it laying the eggs. But that time, I was able to see it was a moment that I was really speechless. I was just observing what happened. I was like, I don't want to go. I always come here. there is nothing. I'll see the turtle laying down some eggs, but the hatching, it was just incredible. And this was last March. So I think that maybe one of the best times, because the weather there, and it would be the laying down time for turtles in Ras Al Had.
I've been in August, seen the turtles, and that's in and around Muscat as well. So that's some of the hotels which they pitch them out. True. And you can go down to Ras Al Jin's Turtle Reserve, which is just further south of Muscat. But just to quickly add, the scuba diving is sensational, by the way. I've got to turn around. We haven't even spoken about it properly. Water sports. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I know. And it's terrible because we're 20 minutes over. And there's so many things I could ask all you guys. Just to quickly say, obviously, Sarah, I know with things like seeing the turtles, I'm sure Audley can advise on that as well over times to go when booking a trip. Absolutely.
Yes, I was just going to say, unfortunately, the best times to see the turtles hatching and laying are June through to September, which is really the worst time in terms of the heat to visit Oman. So they don't quite match up.
Yeah, well, it's like anywhere really, isn't it? You've got things work out over the year. There's always a best time for something and it's not so good for others. Okay, I think we really should wind it up. So a last question to each of you. You know, you've got everybody so excited about visiting Oman. So if there was just one recommendation for what somebody should do or somewhere they should go when they're there, just one recommendation, a real don't miss, what would that be? I know it's really difficult. So, Rob, I'm going to come to you first.
Really wish you hadn't. Oh, all right. Okay. I'm gonna do two. Oh God. Right. Okay. The hill walking through the village, Jabal up in the mountains, the Grand Canyon is mentioned. We've all mentioned it. It is truly spectacular. I think even if you can go online after this, take a look to go see the terraces built inside of the canyon with the roses being grown for rose water. The fjords, spectacular. The turtles, watching them, and seeing frankincense. Oh my God, I'll give them 4. I'll stop talking. I do apologise.
It's just the 4. Okay, no worries. Okay, Sarah.
Like Rob, I would say the walk through the villages in the Jabal Akhtar, and do that on your own, because it's a great way to just bump into local people and basically just take the opportunity to speak to them, go with them for coffee or a barbecue if they invite you, because it's a really good way to scratch beneath the surface of Oman.
I think that's been one of the striking things tonight that I've picked up on from all of you, that it's a hospitable nation, and obviously one gets so much, meeting the locals. So no, that's great. Thank you so much for that. Phoebe, what would your don't miss be?
Well, I'd obviously say Salalah because it's where I spent the most time. And I'd say when you're there, you cannot miss the Well of the Birds, because it's one of those things, like I said, I remember driving to it thinking, this is just a bit of wasteland. Why am I here? And then just going into that sinkhole within minutes, and then just hearing that. I've never heard such a crescendo of bird song. And because you're just kind of just below the surface and the sound bounces off the side. But definitely when I come next time, I'm definitely going to check out the diving, the snorkeling. I'm going to definitely hit Isra up so we can go camping together. I think that would be amazing. So yeah, all I've done from this talk is just add more stuff to my own list about Oman.
Sure. Okay, then last but not least, Isra. I know this is going to be so difficult. But,
yes, it's very difficult. But I would second what both said, Sarah and Rob. And I will add something like, do not stay long in Muscat, because it's worth seeing what's outside Muscat first, and then maybe you can end in Muscat, because you can drive all around Muscat in one day and see everything in it. And if you are in Muscat, stay in the middle of the city, where in Al Khawair, because you will be able to move very easily to see all the places.
Yeah. Okay, that's brilliant. Okay, great message. So get out of Muscat, but then, yes, quite right. Then you can finish off there and relax and do your shopping or whatever right at the very end, having been inspired by the country. Well, thank you so much, all. There's so much more I know, and apologies to people if we didn't get to your question. Do look out for the follow-up email. It'll be out in a couple of days. We'll be answering a few more questions in there. We'll have the recommendations of our speakers tonight. And we'll be able to put in some of those other details, such as, about the leopard conservationist, for instance, and anything like that. So thank you so much to our brilliant speakers. You were all brilliant. And, I just wish we could have carried on so much longer. So thank you so much. And good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.